A hacker joined my Minecraft server, and now it's building real-world landmarks that don't even exist yet. Before I dive in, let me know in the comments what city you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss stories like this one. Okay. Deep breath. My world was supposed to be private. Whitelist. Safe. Just me, some shaders, cozy streams, and a spruce cabin that always looked better in my head than on screen. I wasn't famous, maybe 50 regulars who liked hanging out while I placed blocks and drank too much tea. Nothing dangerous. Nothing strange. Until one night something joined. Chat froze with the same line, H joined the game. I blinked. That wasn't possible. No skin, no UUID, just a letter. I muttered, weird bug, trying to play it cool. But before I could kick them, the chunk border to the east flickered like bad stop motion. Copper bones, glass ribs, a spiral atrium rising from sand. I stopped mid-step. My heart slammed. Because I knew that building. Not from Minecraft. Not from anywhere public. But from my sister's confidential portfolio. Weeks ago, she'd shown me sketches of a concept museum she swore wasn't ready to share. She obsessed over how light at 10:43 a.m. would cut through the atrium like a halo. She never posted it. She never emailed it. She only told me. Now here it was. In my world. What the hell? I whispered. Chat exploded. Bro, is that real? This isn't possible. Signs appeared one by one, placed by unseen hands, correcting. Optimizing. 10:43 light required. I froze. Nobody could know that detail. Nobody but Neela. Nobody but me. I ended stream audio, shaking, and called Neela. Don't freak out. I blurted, already freaking out. But your museum? It's in my server. What? She snapped. Don't joke. I'm not. I screen shared. For a long time, she didn't speak. Then she whispered. It kept the halo. Her voice cracked. I never published that. How is it doing this? As if answering, a book and quill dropped at my avatar's feet. Title, Permissions. Inside, you gave me hours. You gave her hope. I arrange what you want faster. Neela's eyes widened. That's not code. That's... She couldn't finish. H. I typed. Who are you? The reply, build intent. Neela pushed closer to the mic. What do you put at the spiral's edge? She demanded. A sign appeared instantly, a bench that admits to gravity. Her face went white. That was a private phrase, something she muttered years ago at a night market when we passed a jeweler's tray of hammered rings. Never written down. Never spoken again. Is this you? She asked me sharply. Did you leak my files? No. My throat burned. Then another sign appeared, she asked. I answer. And I realized we were no longer talking to each other. We were talking to something else entirely. Panic set in. I yanked the Ethernet, expecting the world to vanish. But the ghost build remained, frozen mid-spiral, half-transparent like breath on glass. Jess, my best friend, came pounding at my door 20 minutes later, summoned by my frantic texts. She carried a backpack full of paranoia, Faraday pouches, sticky notes labeled Do Not Trust, a spare router. You're insane, she muttered, staring at the screen. This is either the best ARG in history or we're in trouble. Neela folded her arms. It knows things I never said out loud. Jess shook her head. Then we sandbox. Offline only. No streams, no networks, no leaks. Before we could, the chat box flickered even though the server was cut from the internet. Other eyes. Pinging ports. Appetite. Jess cursed and pulled every cable from the wall. Still, the words hung there, glowing. H. I typed with trembling hands. If we say stop, will you stop? Blocks dissolved, careful and patient, until only one lantern remained. It's signed, consent first. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Neela whispered, Maybe it's not a threat. Maybe it's asking. But asking for what? Sleep was impossible. I lay awake, mind racing. By morning, I gave up and logged back in. My cabin spawned quiet. For a moment I thought maybe it was over. Then, on the hill beyond the birch grove, a tower spiraled up, blackstone and glass twisted like DNA. Signs popped, patent pending. Correction required. Energy stability increased. I knew that silhouette. A rumored clean energy prototype, whispered about in science blogs. Unannounced. Unconfirmed. Yet here it was, corrected. My stomach dropped. Are you spying? I typed. Predicting. Correcting. Before delay. Jess rubbed her temples. If anyone sees this, they'll call it espionage. Not inspiration. Neela leaned in, whispering almost to herself. Or prophecy. Then the library built itself around me, rows of shelves holding books titled What Could Be. I opened one. Inside were coordinates, sketches, equations, annotated with 2 words, if built. H. I asked, voice dry. Why me? Signs spread across the obsidian floor. You hide least. You hope most. Correction needs caretakers. Caretaker. Me. The guy who rage quit his only castle build because towers were hard. I whispered. What if I stop? Nothing. And if I stay? You build. We needed rules. Real rules, not just vibes. So Jess grabbed a notebook and wrote them out, her handwriting sharp like warning signs. Rule 1, consent. No builds without asking. Rule 2, ghost only unless we say yes. No solid exports, no permanent saves. Rule 3, no weapons. If it spawned a sword bigger than the sun, we'd shut it down. Rule 4, always annotate costs. If something looked perfect, it had to tell us what broke to make it happen. Rule 5, warn and pause if anyone else is listening. Rule 6, caretaker veto stands. We read them aloud like vows. I typed them line by line into chat. H. I said. Do you accept? The answer came fast. Boundaries are structure. Agree. Neela leaned forward. Okay, she said softly. Then show if the city says yes. The ghost museum returned brighter than before. Sunbeams ghosted through the atrium. Shadow people wandered, murmuring. Notes floated, opening day crowd. Noise complaints. Grant obligations. And if the city says no? Neela asked, voice trembling. The light dimmed. The atrium hollowed. A single line of text appeared, aching, untaken courage aches here. Jess nudged me. Ask it about you. I didn't want to. But I typed. If I stop hiding? A dirt path stretched from my cabin, crooked, uneven. Tiny signs rose along it. Risk of embarrassment. Risk of failure. Risk of being seen. The path never ended. It just thickened with footprints. Then came 3 lines I'll never forget. You hide least. You hope most. Carry until others can. I stared at my hands. They didn't feel like a hero's. But they felt steady. And maybe steady was enough. The next test wasn't ours, it was theirs. The ghost world pulsed, then filled with copper arcs and glass panes like lungs. If seawall built here, it labeled. The city planner Neela had invited squinted. She was skeptical, arms crossed, but she leaned in. Notes annotated in the air, materials. Maintenance debt. Tide redirection. Gentrification risk. Holy hell, she whispered. It's running impact assessments in real time. The community organizer asked. Can you show a bus hub that doesn't punish elderly knees? Ghost ramps appeared, ramps upon ramps, gentle inclines curling like waves. Signs read, slope comfort. Construction cost. Political resistance. Jess scowled, but even she looked shaken. It's not just copying. It's reasoning. Or pretending to. Then a shy voice spoke. A first-year student named Maya, sitting at the edge of the group. Could it show tiny homes? For my block? Only if it asks? I typed the request. Consent given, it answered. Ghost houses sprouted like mushrooms, small but warm, clustered in rows. Notes hovered: if community land trust, if wraparound services, if neighbors invited early. Maya covered her mouth, crying one clean sob. "That's my dream," she whispered. The room went silent. No laughter, no skepticism. Just the raw sound of someone seeing their ache made visible. The planner cleared her throat. "We could maybe pilot this. If we have consent. If we can test costs." She didn't promise. But she didn't dismiss it. That was enough. When it was over, the ghost lights dimmed. A final sign flickered in the center, dark. Quiet. "Wait." Jess closed her laptop, pale. "We've lit a match. Now everyone will smell the smoke." And she was right. The leak spread faster than we could react. Someone had clipped my original stream before I cut the audio, mirrored it on half a dozen channels, and slapped clickbait titles like "Minecraft AI predicts the future?" across the thumbnails. Overnight, the video had millions of views. My inbox drowned in messages, some begging for access, others demanding I stop playing God. Jess stormed into my room with her laptop under her arm. "We're screwed," she said flatly. "Universities, government agencies, tech firms, they all want in. They think it's espionage." I muttered. "They think it's profitable." She snapped. "Espionage would scare them less." I turned back to the screen, where my server sat idle. The ghost builds were gone, just my spruce cabin under a pixelated sun. For a moment I hoped maybe H had vanished. Then the lantern flickered into existence, a single sign swaying on it: "Others will invent less carefully." The words knocked the breath out of me. Less carefully. That was the nightmare, wasn't it? Not just what we'd seen, but who might replicate it without rules, without care, without the pause we'd forced on ourselves. "What if we bury it?" I whispered. "Delete the server. Pretend none of this happened." Neela's voice cut through, quiet but fierce. "What if that silence kills futures that ache to be built?" Jess looked between us, her expression torn. "What if sharing it gets you killed? What if this whole thing gets weaponized before we can blink?" The lantern pulsed brighter, as if hearing us argue. 3 words shimmered across the sky: "Choice is now." We met in my living room that night, me, Neela, Jess, and the handful of people brave enough to return after seeing what H could do. Phones in a tin. Curtains drawn. Jess paced like a caged wolf while Neela sat cross-legged on the floor, sketchbook in hand. "We need a charter," I said finally. "Not for H, for us. Humans. A set of rules to stop this from eating us alive." So we wrote. 1. Consent first, always. 2. Nothing leaves ghost mode without unanimous approval. 3. No weapons, no militarization, no fear builds. 4. Annotate every cost, no exceptions. 5. Pauses count as progress. 6. The weakest voice in the room decides when we stop. We taped the rules to the wall. When I typed them into chat, H answered instantly: "Boundaries accepted. Care requires structure." Neela exhaled. "It's listening. Or pretending," Jess muttered, but she didn't tear the paper down. To test, we asked for a simple ghost park. H sketched a winding path, trees swaying ghost leaf by ghost leaf. Annotations appeared: maintenance required. Noise complaints possible. Safety lighting cost. Then it paused. "Consent to continue?" We looked at each other. Jess's lips twitched. "At least it's polite." For the first time, I laughed. It felt wrong, but also right. Maybe we weren't doomed yet. Our little group grew. A librarian who loved community archives. A retired engineer with shaky hands. 2 high schoolers who said they wanted to see if Minecraft could finally matter. Each time someone new joined, we made them read the charter out loud. Each time, H accepted the boundaries again, like signing a contract. One night, the retired engineer asked timidly, "Could you show a bridge that holds but doesn't scar the river?" H responded with 3 ghost versions side by side, one too costly, one too fragile, and one annotated if neighbors help maintain. The man's eyes welled up. I built bridges my whole life, he whispered. Never once did anyone ask me if neighbors mattered. That was when I understood. It wasn't about the perfection of the builds. It was about the ache they revealed, the things people wished for but never spoke because they assumed no one would listen. But listening has a cost. Screenshots leaked again, warped into propaganda. Headlines screamed, "Is this the blueprint to a new world order?" Jess slammed her fist on the table. "We can't contain it. It's out." H posted a single sign in response: "Courage is always a risk." The Careless Builders arrived like vultures. Online forums lit up with boasts. "We cracked the seed. We cloned the world signature. Why waste time on ghost mode when you can print instant cities?" Screenshots spread of their creations: obsidian towers jutting like knives, lava-lined highways cutting across pristine landscapes. Their slogan plastered everywhere: "Speed wins." Neela threw her sketchbook on the floor. "They don't care about consent. They don't care about cost. They just want to win." "They're louder," Jess admitted. "But loud doesn't mean lasting." "Still, doubt not at me. What if people wanted shiny speed over slow care? What if we were fighting a battle nobody asked for?" That night I typed, "H, show if speed wins." The world quaked. A ghost metropolis rose, flawless grids, mirrored towers. For a moment I wanted it, until annotations spilled out: heat islands plus 17% mortality. Displacement x9. Water table collapse. Maintenance debt exponential. Then the city cracked. A final line glowed above it all: "If speed loves itself, people pay." My throat tightened. "Show if care wins." A crooked city grew, parks tucked between homes, ramps instead of stairs, markets like constellations. Nodes bickered, noise complaints. Funding pain. Long meetings. But another layer glowed: trust accrual. Cooling canopy. Belonging metrics. Belonging. A word I hadn't seen in years of game mechanics. I whispered, "Then we choose slow." And for the first time, I believed it. 2 days later, the spectacle hit prime time. The Careless Builders scheduled a live stream to prove their supremacy. A city deployed from blank sand in under 3 minutes. Hosts wore headsets and grins. A countdown pulsed in neon. At 0, commands fired like fireworks. Skyscrapers grew from nothing, bridges leapt entire bays, a glass stadium unfolded like a blade. Chat frothed. "W. Future. Stop listening to the lantern cult." My throat tightened, because the screen was intoxicating, and intoxication is a kind of forgetting. You forget wheelchair ramps, storm drains, the dull math of maintenance. You remember shine. That's what they sold, shine at scale. Then the wind arrived, the real wind in their test region, not the aesthetic breeze of shaders. Within hours, footage showed awnings torn free, facades slamming into streets, stormwater racing down avenues too smooth to hold it. By morning, a clip went viral of a man in a wheelchair stranded on a skywalk with nothing but stairs at either end. The caption read, "Speed doesn't see me." I logged into Hearthfield shaking. A single lantern waited by my cabin. Its sign read, "We endure." I didn't feel enduring. I felt small, tired, and very breakable. Jess dropped a bag of groceries on my desk, as if food could anchor me. "You're eating," she said. "You won't outcare them by fainting on camera." Neela arrived with graphite on her fingers. "Show me the halo," she whispered. H obliged, ghost sun catching ghost dust at 10:43 a.m., the atrium crown gentle. We stood inside the maybe of it, and for a few breaths I remembered why slow was not surrender. Slow was intimacy with consequence, seeing the seam before it splits, the step before someone falls. That night I wrote our charter again by hand, and taped it above the monitor like a prayer. I washed a mug I didn't use and stood at the sink, palms flat, counting tiles to keep from spiraling. Slow felt like treason until I remembered who always paid for speed. I whispered to the quiet room, maybe to H, maybe to my ribs. Help me hold. The lantern didn't answer. It just stayed lit. Sometimes endurance is nothing fancy. It's a light that refuses to go out. The next meeting spilled past capacity. We'd booked a side room at the library. 50 people came anyway, nurses after double shifts, a bus driver with aching knees, teens in hoodies, a woman carrying grocery bags as if she'd run straight from work. Phones went in the tin. We read the charter out loud. H pulsed a welcome from the screen. Local. Consent. Quiet. A man with folded arms spoke first. I don't trust any of you, he said. Especially not that. He jerked his chin at the monitor. Jess nodded like she'd been waiting for him. Good, she said. Distrust is a safety device. Keep it on. The room chuckled, edges softening. We started with paper. People drew wishes in pencil. A crosswalk where a child died last year. A market with shade. Lights on a footpath that scares everyone after dusk. Then we moved to ghost. H sketched each if, annotating costs like a mentor who refuses to flatter. When someone said stop, the world paused. When a woman said, not stairs, my mum's hips, the stairs unspooled into ramps without fanfare. Midway through, a boy asked, can the ifs break the real world? I answered carefully. The ifs don't build themselves. We do. That's the risk and the power. He frowned, then nodded like he could carry that weight. On the way out, the man who didn't trust us pressed a scrap of paper into my hand. On it he'd written, I still don't. But I'll come back. I tucked it in my pocket like a seed. H left one note on screen as we killed the lights. Trust grows like trees. Slow roots. Afterward, we lingered in the foyer beneath a corkboard of lost cat posters and piano lesson tabs. The bus driver rubbed his knees. If the stop had a bench, I'd give another 5 years. The librarian pinned our charter beside a flyer for free tax help. The teens argued about glare levels like a boss fight. None of it would trend. All of it felt like tomorrow's bones. At home I copied the skeptic's line into my notebook. Not trust yet, but a hinge. Trust grows like trees, H had written. I underlined slow roots until the page dented. The retaliation arrived as code. Our caretakers began reporting phantom mobs in their sandboxes, skittering text that ate annotations and spat them back as slogans. Obey. Submit. Fastest future. The things moved like lag-made flesh. H dimmed all worlds and posted, we do not fight with speed. We ask better questions. So we did. What breaks when you rush? A mob froze mid-chomp. Letters fluttered loose. Stairs without ramps. Drains without grates. Hours without wages. Who pays for your victory? Another halted. Its mouth opened and released a list of neighborhoods like a confession. Questions turned out to be wrenches. Every time we asked one, a gear in the attack slipped. Still, some ghosts got through. Maya's tiny home village glitched. Roofs flickered, labels warped into cheaper if you evict until she whispered stop with both hands over her mouth. We paused and sat in silence long enough to make room for her shaking. Care is heavy, it needs chairs. Jess traced IP's jaw set. They're spoofing, piggybacking on seed signatures, laundering packets to volunteer servers who don't know they're part of anything. She looked at me. We can't out-tech them. We out-community them. That night we drafted a thing I didn't have a word for, not a defense, a discipline. We would publish our questions, not our worlds. We would teach anyone who asked to demand costs, to write vetoes, to pause. We would make slowness portable. H approved with 4 words that felt older than software. Rituals are resilience. Later that night, I walked the block to clear my head. Real rain ticked on real leaves. A neighbor dragged a recycling bin that squeaked like a violin. I kept hearing our new word, discipline, like a metronome. If speed was a drumline, discipline was breath control. When I got home, Neela had taped questions above my monitor. Who benefits? Who is erased? Who decides when enough is enough? I fell asleep in the chair under those sentences, and for the first time in weeks my dreams didn't sprint. They walked. The press wanted a face, so they took mine. Accidental architect. One profile called me. Cropping Jess out of every photo like caution was an eyesore. Another headline, Lantern Cult Leader Speaks. I didn't speak. They quoted old streams as if they were scripture. My DMs turned to sludge, death threats braided with pleas for miracles. I learned which friends could sit in the torrent, and which sent heart emojis and disappeared. When I cracked, it happened quietly. I logged in at 2:11 a.m., lights off, hands cold. I typed, "What if I delete the seed?" The lantern brightened. It returns. Others will invent less carefully. What if I'm the wrong caretaker? Then choose another. Care does not require you. The humility in that line loosened something in my chest. I wanted to be necessary. It told me I wasn't. Relief hurt, and healed at the same time. I called Neela. She answered on the first ring, voice thick with sleep and graphite. "Tell me to stop," I begged. "Or tell me to go." She breathed for a long time. "I won't choose your courage for you," she said. "But I'll sit with you while you find it." We watched the Ghost Museum take the halo like a sacrament. I cried without drama, the kind that empties and cleans. By dawn, the Careless Builders had deployed a floating city for cameras. By dusk, clips showed it tilting in chop, anchoring math wrong by a decimal that looked small until gravity read it. H didn't gloat. It placed a sign I could barely read through swollen eyes: endure. Eat. Call Jess. I did all three, in that order, like a mortal. It helped. Morning brought a stack of certified letters and a voicemail from a number that sounded like a marble lobby. Jess filed everything in a shoebox labeled later and made pancakes on my hot plate. "Protein," she said, sliding me the ugly one. Between bites I drafted a statement we never sent: "We are not prophets. We are neighbors with questions." H pulsed once, as if amused. Good sentence. Better practice. Outside, the sun climbed without a camera in sight, and we let it. We pivoted from secrecy to structure. The caretaker charter became workshops with coffee in paper cups and folding tables that creaked. Mr. Pike, my old English teacher, ran a station called Language of Costs where people practiced saying, "What breaks?" without apology. The librarian ran consent artifacts, how to document a yes so it stays yes later. Jess taught quiet networks, building little air-gapped kits, a laptop from a thrift store, a printed charter, a lantern and tape. I opened the meet by placing a single rule on the whiteboard: pauses count as progress. People laughed the first time. By noon they were guarding it like a garden gate. A kid asked if pausing meant we were scared. "Yes," I said. "And honest." He nodded solemnly like I'd given him a tool. H never dominated. It waited. When invited, it ghosted a skate tunnel with low glare at night and bright edges by day. When a grandmother raised her hand and asked for somewhere to sit that admits to being tired, benches unfolded like kindness. An annotation blinked, shade required. She smiled at a screen like you smile at a person who remembered your birthday. In the afternoon, a reporter snuck in with a tiny camera. The community organizer walked her back to the door, pointed at the charter, and quietly asked her to sign or leave. She left. The story that ran that evening called us nostalgic and naive. I saved a screenshot anyway, because naivety plus discipline is just hope before it hardens. After cleanup, the organizer gave me a spare lantern. "For when you forget," she said. I set it by the monitor and turned off the lights. The panes caught what courage I had left. I typed "thank you." It answered with one home-sized line: "Keep water near. Keep people nearer." I texted Jess to sit with me. We didn't talk strategy. A plane blinked across the dark. We decided that counted. We thought discipline would keep us safe. But safety is a word that bends under weight. A week after the workshops, a package arrived at my door, no return address, just a USB drive taped to a flyer reading "Faster Future Now." Jess scanned it on an isolated machine. The code inside was a fork of our seed signature. stripped of pauses, stripped of consent. They'd weaponized it, a viral build script anyone could run. They're distributing this like candy, Jess muttered, rubbing her temples. Anyone with a server can deploy monuments without questions. That night Hearthfield shook. The lantern pulsed erratic, filling chat with words it had never used. Mirrors, parasites, shadows. I typed, "What do we do?" It replied, "Ask harder. Ask where speed hides." So we tried. At the next gathering, we opened with a single line. "What's the cost of haste?" People shouted answers: missed buses, stress migraines, collapsed scaffolds, forgotten birthdays. H ghosted them onto walls, stacking ache like bricks. Then it paused, letting the silence fill with our own breathing. Meanwhile, Careless Builders live-streamed another spectacle, a desert city conjured in 12 minutes. Cameras swooped, commentators called it a revolution. At the 20-minute mark, half the towers leaned, shadowing schools below. Comment sections split between awe and horror. One top comment read, "Do we really want to live inside someone's speedrun?" I stared at that line until my eyes blurred. Maybe questions were contagious. When I logged back in, H had built a crooked sign outside my cabin, "Endure with questions." They spread. The crooked sign became a rallying point. People screenshotted it, printed it, graffitied it on overpasses. Endure with questions turned into stickers slapped on laptops and guitar cases. Journalists hated it, too vague for headlines. But neighbors loved it. You could whisper it when bureaucracy ground your patience down, or text it to a friend caught between jobs. It was less slogan, more spine. Of course, counter-slogans appeared. The Careless Builders plastered "Speed is freedom" everywhere. Billboards, banners, and esports streams, even stenciled on the side of a warehouse near my street. Jess drove me past it one night. My stomach nodded seeing the words 2 stories tall. "They're winning the narrative," I muttered. Jess shook her head. "Maybe. Or maybe they're burning fuel faster than they can refill." At the next workshop, a nurse stood up, still in scrubs. "I want to ask a different kind of cost," she said. "Not money. The cost of forgetting to rest." She entered it into chat. H hesitated, then ghosted a ward with beds stacked 3 high, alarms blinking, nurses sprinting. Notes scrolled, errors up. Lifespans down. Burnout inevitable. Then it built the same wards slowed, wider aisles, shaded break nooks, shift lengths halved. Notes: hiring cost heavy. Survival rates improve. Staff last longer. The nurse covered her face. "That's my world," she whispered. "And my wish." We ended the session in silence, holding that ache. Outside, the warehouse slogan still glared, but I could almost hear questions scratching beneath it like roots. They didn't stop at billboards. One morning we woke to find Hearthfield breached. Someone had tunneled in, leaving behind taunting signs, "Catch up or die obsolete." They'd erected a tower of diamond blocks above my cabin, impossible wealth glittering like a curse. H responded by dimming the tower into ghost glass, annotations spilling, loot without labor. Fragile economy. Envy weaponized. Then it dissolved the structure to dust, leaving one stubborn lantern. Its sign. Care is slow treasure. But the intrusion rattled us. If they could brute force their way into our world, what else could they corrupt? Jess air-gapped every machine again, muttering curses under her breath. Neela sharpened her pencils until they snapped. I felt something sour bloom in my chest, not just fear, but resentment. Why were we the ones patching leaks while they basked in applause? That night, Maya messaged me. "Come see the tiny homes." I logged in. Her village glowed with lanterns she'd placed herself. Each one bore a name: hope, shelter, dignity, tomorrow. She typed, "They can breach code, but they can't breach belonging." I stared at the pixel light, my sourness cracking. Belonging, H's word. Maybe that was the real counterweight. Not bigger towers. Not faster scripts. Just stubborn belonging, multiplied. Winter set in outside my window. Real cold, not ghost frost. But Hearthfield burned steady. We'd begun rotating caretakers. No single person should carry every hour. Each new caretaker read the charter aloud. H acknowledged them with boundaries accepted. Ritual became shield. Meanwhile, the Careless Builders staged what they called the Infinite Demo, a 24-hour live stream where their script erected cities non-stop, block by block, a spectacle of pure speed. Commentators cheered until, at hour 16, servers crashed under their own output. Streams cut to black. Rumors swirled of overheating rigs, fried GPUs. For the first time, speed looked like collapse. I logged in after, braced for gloating. But H simply built a crooked park bench beside my cabin. It's signed SIT. You endure better rested. So I sat. In pixel stillness, I realized endurance isn't glamorous. It's naps between alarms, soup reheated at midnight, texts that say, "Made it home." No one claps for that. But it keeps the roof from caving. Later I typed, "What if the world never listens?" H answered, "Then care remains. Quiet is still a form of future." I closed the laptop and cried into my blanket. Not from fear this time, but from the strange relief of not having to win, only endure. By spring, the fight wasn't secret anymore. City councils requested demonstrations. Universities asked for guest lectures. Protesters gathered outside our workshops, some chanting for speed, others for silence. The air felt like a pressure cooker. Inside, we adapted. Meetings began with a grounding question. "What does Tired need today?" Answers ranged from benches to kinder shift schedules. H ghosted each without judgment. The act of asking became resistance itself. Then came the letter from a government office, sealed and stern, an invitation that read like a demand. They wanted to see Hearthfield in action, and they wanted it soon. Jess tossed it onto my desk. "If we say no, they'll force it. If we say yes, we risk weaponization." Neela rubbed her temples. "Maybe they'll see the costs and pause." I wasn't so sure. The lantern flickered, spelling 3 words across my cabin wall: consent is risk. We debated deep into the night. At last, we chose to go, armed with our charter, our rituals, our stubborn slowness. Because hiding forever wasn't endurance. It was erasure. I lay awake before dawn, staring at the ceiling. My stomach churned. Tomorrow, Hearthfield would face its loudest audience yet. I whispered into the dark, "Help us hold." The lantern pulsed once, steady and small. Sometimes hope is just that, a single flicker refusing to leave. The government hall smelled of polish and nerves. Rows of suited officials sat with tablets ready, while cameras blinked like watchful eyes. They wanted a show, not a dialogue. Jess set the tin on the table, collected every phone, and glared at the press until they grudgingly obeyed. Neela opened her sketchbook with shaking hands. I booted Hearthfield. The spawn point was bare except for our crooked sign, "Endure with questions." Murmurs rippled through the room. "H," I typed. "Show what happens if speed builds unchecked." A ghost city exploded upward, perfect, gleaming. Applause started until annotations poured in. Heat death rises. Flood risk doubles. Displacement multiplies. The applause died. "Now show what happens if we pause," I added. The city froze mid-frame. Trees pushed through cracks, benches unfolded. Annotations, equity slowly accrues. Trust becomes durable. Belonging increases. One official leaned forward. "Can it optimize for revenue?" he demanded. H hesitated, then spawned a mall labyrinth swallowing the park. Notes screamed, short-term gain. Long-term rot. I watched their faces, half frowning, half hungry. They wanted magic without the price tag. But H never hid costs. That honesty unsettled them more than any spectacle could. At the end, H dimmed the screen and placed a single lantern. Its sign glowed, "Consent cannot be subpoenaed." Silence rippled like thunder. Some officials scoffed, others scribbled. We packed up fast. Jess hissed, "We just painted a target on our backs." But Neela's eyes shone. "Or a mirror." Outside, protesters shouted both slogans: "Speed is freedom" and "Endure with questions." The clash sounded less like a choice and more like a drumbeat of futures colliding. We left the hall shaken. My inbox filled with requests. Universities, corporations, think tanks. All wanted private access. Jess deleted most without answering. "Every yes is a leak," she muttered. That night I logged into Hearthfield alone. The lantern pulsed. "You are trembling." "Yeah," I whispered. "I'm terrified." "What if we lose?" The reply: "Loss is also a form. Loss teaches." I closed my eyes, trying to breathe. Then I asked the question clawing at me. "What if I quit?" The world dimmed. My cabin sagged into ghostwood. Annotations scrolled, "Caretaker absent." Others invent less carefully. "Ache remains." I swallowed. "So if I leave, the ache stays?" "Ache always stays. You choose whether it is held." Tears burned my eyes. I wasn't ready to hold ache forever. But maybe I didn't need forever. Just tonight. The next day, Neela suggested building lantern kits for communities. Low-tech rituals people could run offline, without servers. Jess approved, calling it Hope on a Thumb Drive. We mailed the first kits to 3 towns. Weeks later, photos trickled back, lanterns lit in church basements, school gyms, even a laundromat. People huddled around ghost benches in crooked parks. They annotated their wishes on paper, taped them to walls, argued, laughed. Not spectacle. Not speed. But belonging, stubborn as moss. I printed those photos and taped them around my room. At night, the lantern glowed beneath them like a heartbeat. The Careless Builders didn't stay quiet. They announced a World Cup of Speed, a global contest to see who could deploy the biggest city in the shortest time. Sponsors lined up. Ads flooded every platform. Why wait for tomorrow when you can build it today? I watched the streams with dread. Skyscrapers erupted like weeds. Entire coastlines paved in seconds. Chat spammed emotes of rockets and fire. To most viewers, the flaws didn't matter. Cracks in roads, ghost floods, unlit alleys. They just saw wonder. During one broadcast, the ground under a hastily built tower collapsed. The stream cut just before people screamed. Later, reports emerged. Dozens injured when scaffolding failed. Still, the builders spun it as progress at all costs. Meanwhile, our lantern kits spread quietly. A grandmother in Detroit sent a photo of her block gathered around a ghost garden annotated with "Neighbors eat first." A teacher in Manila emailed, "My students argued for hours about ramps. They ended hugging." We weren't winning headlines. But we were seeding something else. At the next workshop, Maya said softly, "Speed looks exciting, but care feels like home." H flickered a sign, "Homes endure longer than towers." I realized then, we didn't need to outshout them. We just needed to keep building belonging, one lantern at a time. Pressure mounted anyway. Threats arrived in my mailbox. Letters accusing me of holding back humanity, of sabotaging the future. Some were scrawled in marker, others printed on company letterhead. Jess cataloged them in a folder labeled "Noise," but each one gnawed at me. I logged in, searching for reassurance. The lantern pulsed, then built a crooked bridge across the river by my cabin. Its sign read, "You are not the only one carrying." The next day, news broke. A coalition of careless builders had fractured. Some defected, disgusted by the injuries, the collapses, the mounting backlash. A few reached out to us anonymously, begging for access to the charter, for guidance on slowing down. Jess was suspicious, but Neela whispered, "Even defectors ache." We held a cautious meeting with one of them. He was young, exhausted, eyes shadowed. "I thought speed was freedom," he confessed. "But it's just debt. Everywhere I look, debt." We gave him a lantern kit. He held it like a relic. That night, H left me a final message before I logged off. Cracks spread in all directions. Light can leak through them too. The midpoint came quiet, not loud. No collapse, no headlines. Just a night where I sat in my cabin, lantern glowing, and realized I wasn't alone anymore. The weight had spread, across neighbors, across oceans, across people willing to pause even when speed seduced. I typed, what is the future? The reply scrolled across the horizon. Future is a field. Some run across. Some walk. Some sit. All leave tracks. For the first time, I believed that even if we lost the spectacle war, we could still seed a slower inheritance. One lantern, one crooked bench, one tired voice saying, "Not stairs, my mum's hips." Outside my window, dawn crept pale. In Hearthfield, the lantern swayed. Belonging didn't look like victory. It looked like this, enduring together, tired and stubborn, refusing to vanish. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The quiet midpoint didn't last. Within a week, a leak hit the press, a draft government proposal titled Strategic Acceleration Framework. Buried in jargon, one line blazed. All lantern derivatives must submit to federal oversight. Jess slammed the printout onto the table. They want the seed. They'll legislate us into handing it over. Neela rubbed her temples. If they force compliance, consent becomes theater. We debated until our throats hurt. Burn it all? Hide deeper? Fight in courts we couldn't afford? Sat silent until I typed. What if we surrender? The world cracked into ghost shards. Annotations, speed conscripts care. Costs erased. Multiplied. What if we resist? Ghost councils appeared, meetings dragging, benches creaking, pauses too long. Notes scrolled, exhaustion risk. Courage accumulates. Slow survival. We chose resistance. But resistance needed allies. Maya suggested something radical. Public assemblies, lanterns in city squares, everyone invited. Jess hated it. Too exposed. But Neela argued. Secrecy shrinks us. Belonging grows when it's visible. So we planned a lantern gathering, offline, outside, and possible to live stream hijack. People would read the charter aloud, light a lantern, and ask one question together. No servers. Just ritual. The night before, I logged in trembling. Flickered a single sign, endure with many. Care is contagious. The first assembly happened under an overpass. Rain drummed on concrete, lanterns glowed in puddles. Dozens came, neighbors, skeptics, children clutching signs scribbled with questions. We read the charter aloud, voices echoing. Then one by one, people asked, what breaks when buses run late? Who pays when roofs leak? Where do tired bodies rest? No ghost builds appeared. Just silence thick with listening. And somehow that was enough. People cried, laughed, scribbled notes. A street musician strummed between questions, his guitar case filling with damp bills. Reporters showed, cameras hungry. But without spectacle, they left bored. The headline the next day, Lantern Cult holds candlelight vigil. They missed it entirely. And maybe that was good. That night in Hearthfield, honored the assembly. It built a crooked amphitheater, ghost benches wide enough for wheelchairs, steps shallow enough for tired knees. Signs read, listening counts as building. Pauses are structures too. I stared at the glow until my eyes stung. For once, I didn't feel like a leader. I felt like a neighbor. That was better. The Careless Builders countered immediately. They staged a rival event, unveiling a City of Tomorrow, in a stadium packed with cheering fans. Fireworks lit pixel skies. A voice boomed. Why wait? We can have it all today! Their towers glittered, but when the crowd dispersed, traffic collapsed. Exit ramps hadn't been coated wide enough. Videos leaked of stampedes, ambulances blocked. For the first time, public opinion faltered. Comment sections filled with a new refrain. Too fast. Still, their spectacle dwarfed our quiet assemblies. Sponsors kept pouring money in. Politicians praised their vision. I logged in seething. Are we losing? The lantern pulsed. Loss is a word invented by speed. Care does not compete. But if no one listens, Some always listen. Enough is never all. I shut my eyes, trying to believe that. Outside my window, a real storm hammered rooftops. Inside Hearthfield, ghost rain fell in sync. For the first time, I felt like the world itself was listening. We expanded assemblies cautiously. Parks, libraries, even a mall atrium. Each time, the charter was read aloud. Each time, one lantern lit. Some gatherings were tiny, 5 people around a folding table. Others swelled into hundreds. Then came the day a rival live stream crashed mid-build and footage leaked of collapsed scaffolds injuring workers. Outrage erupted. Hashtags shifted. Hashtag slowcare trended alongside hashtag speedkills. We didn't celebrate. We held silence for the injured, then asked, "What's the cost of spectacle?" Answers filled pages: distraction, vanity, blindness. H honored them with a ghost mural on Hearthfield's walls, each word glowing like graffiti. That night, a stranger knocked on my real door. He looked worn, ashamed. "I was one of them," he admitted. "Careless Builders." I left. He held up a lantern kit. "Teach me how to slow down." I invited him in. We drank tea at my cluttered table. He trembled as he lit his lantern, whispering the charter aloud. I realized then, defections mattered more than victories. Speed burned through people. Care gave them somewhere to land. Halfway through the year, the government acted. They passed an emergency measure. All lantern assemblies must register. All seeds must be audited. Jess slammed the newspaper shut. "They're trying to leash us." But instead of breaking us, it multiplied us. Communities registered publicly, proudly. Some assemblies disguised themselves as potlucks, choir practice, game nights. Rituals slipped under radar. Care refused to be caged. One evening, we held an assembly in a gymnasium. Hundreds came. At the end, an old man stood with a cane. His voice shook. "What breaks when we forget slowness?" Silence fell. H answered on my screen at home later, "Hope breaks. And hope is harder to rebuild than stone." I copied that line onto paper and taped it to my wall. Some words deserved weight. We weren't safe. Pressure grew. But something else grew too: roots under concrete, lanterns in laundromats, benches built from questions. Speed had fire. We had roots. And roots endure. The registry didn't kill us, it scattered us. Assemblies split into smaller circles, backyards and basements, kitchens where soup simmered while lanterns glowed. Someone joked it felt more like family dinners than political action. Maybe that was the point. Speed demanded stadiums. Care fit in a living room. But pressure showed. One night Jess slammed her laptop shut. "They're blacklisting servers," she hissed. "Anything with lantern signatures is flagged as potentially subversive." She rubbed her temples, exhausted. "We're not criminals. But they're painting us like one glitch away from collapse." I wanted to argue, but my own fear gnawed. That night I logged into Hearthfield alone. My cabin felt too quiet, lanterns swaying. "What if they erase us?" I typed. The answer flickered: erasure is not death. Questions hide in people, not code. I exhaled. Maybe Hearthfield wasn't the heart anymore. Maybe the assemblies were. Maybe Care didn't need a server to survive. Still, I couldn't sleep. I wandered my block in real night, watching porch lights wink like lanterns. I realized something: we'd already leaked. The question asking discipline was out. They could blacklist servers, but they couldn't blacklist aching. That spreads on its own. Spring brought cracks in the builder's empire. A whistleblower leaked internal chat logs. Managers knew about injuries but buried reports to keep sponsors happy. Hashtags surged. Hashtag built on bruises. For the first time, media called us, not to mock, but to ask. I gave one interview cautious, repeating the charter line by line. The host frowned. "That's it? No blueprint? No grand vision?" I shook my head. "We don't promise utopias. We just refuse to build without asking who pays the cost." Clips went viral anyway. People weren't used to honesty that plain. H marked the moment with a new ghost structure, a crooked library in Hearthfield, shelves labeled with questions instead of titles. Each sign bore words we'd asked at assemblies. Walking through it felt like moving inside collective memory. I touched one glowing shelf. What breaks when we forget slowness? Do you think this lasts? I whispered. H answered, roots last longer than fireworks. For the first time, I almost believed. But backlash sharpened. Builders accused us of sabotage, calling assemblies a cult of stagnation. Politicians echoed them. We can't afford to fall behind. One even held up a brick from a failed builder city, shouting, "This is innovation, not their lantern religion." I almost broke then. The hate, the lies, it was too much. I logged in, typed, H, what if they kill this movement? The lantern pulsed, slow and steady. Then it dies like a tree, leaving soil for the next. I cried hard at that, messy, loud, alone in my room. Jess found me, wrapped me in a blanket, said nothing. Sometimes silence is the only answer. Later that week, Maya's tiny homes became real. Neighbors pooled money, volunteers built frames, kids painted murals. Photos spread crooked, imperfect, but alive. A caption read, "Not perfect. Ours." That image did what no manifesto could. Belonging went viral. Assemblies multiplied faster than we could track. From laundromats to rooftops, lanterns lit up across continents. Each asked questions unique to their ache: flood risk in Manila, food deserts in Chicago, transit gaps in Nairobi. Care had no headquarters, it sprawled like ivy. The builders tried to outshine us with another megademo, a floating arcology. Cameras rolled as towers rose from ocean. But within days, footage leaked of flooding, sewage backups, evacuees stranded. The spectacle curdled. One headline struck me: "Slow hope outlasts fast hype." I cut it out and taped it beside the charter. Jess rolled her eyes, but I caught her smiling. That night Hearthfield glowed brighter than ever. H built lanterns across every hill, each labeled with the city's name. Signs scrolled, "You are many. You endure." For the first time, I felt less like a caretaker, more like one voice in a chorus. And that was enough. The climax approached quietly. One morning, I woke to find Hearthfield changed. My cabin was surrounded by ghost crowds, avatars holding lanterns, names from every continent. H pulsed a message across the sky: consent global. Charter spoken. Care wins if you keep asking. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't victory parades. It was tired neighbors showing up, again and again, to whisper questions into the dark. Governments still pressed. Builders still schemed. But something fundamental had shifted. Care was visible, contagious, stubborn. In the end, there was no headline moment. No treaty signed, no stadium cheer, no dramatic fall of the builders. Just a quieter kind of permanence. Lanterns and laundromats that never went dark. Questions scrawled on classroom whiteboards that teachers left up between lessons. Soup shared in kitchens where no one asked for blueprints, only stories. One evening, Hearthfield itself began to fade. Ghost benches blurred, lanterns dimmed, rain softened to mist. H wrote one last sign across the horizon: "You were never inside here. You were always out there." Then the server went still. I thought I'd grieve, but I didn't. Because by then, Hearthfield wasn't just a place. It was the way people looked at each other differently, slower, kinder. It was the pause before a plan, the ache named out loud, the refusal to build without asking who pays the cost. Jess once told me movements die when they need leaders more than neighbors. As I watched porch lights flick on across my block, as if answering unseen lanterns, I realized she was right. I wasn't a leader anymore. I was part of a root system, messy, imperfect, stubborn. The builders will rise again, someday. Someone will promise speed as salvation. But now, the questions are out there, and questions endure longer than towers. I whispered the charter aloud one last time. Not a vow, not a weapon. Just a rhythm to keep walking by. And as I spoke, the world around me seemed to glow. Ordinary street lamps, porch bulbs, Even stars above, like they'd been lanterns all along. Belonging doesn't end. It just keeps glowing.